Hello and welcome to the Billion Dollar Broker podcast. My name is Ross LeCain. I'm bringing my 25 years industry experience together with leading experts around the globe to give you the insights on how to live a better life and grow a profitable mortgage broking business that you are proud of. Welcome to the Billion Dollar Broker podcast. Today I'm excited. I've got Ian Simpson, affectionately known as Simo. He's got one of the top Smartline franchises. He's been amongst the top 100 brokers in the country and been awarded Smartline's top franchisee on numerous occasions. Welcome, Simo.
Thanks, Ross. Good to be here.
Yeah. So first, I just wanted to give an introduction. So you got started, you were telling me 17 years ago. So tell me, what that was like, how you got into broking.
Yeah, for sure. So I was previously working in banking, investment banking for Macquarie Bank, and previous to that was for Bankers Trust, and I was involved in the interest rate market. So I was doing interest rate trading, and at that time, a bit different to nowadays, in the early 2000s, the government was running a surplus. So the bond market was actually, I was trading government bonds, and the bond market was actually, there was talk about it actually being closed down because the government was in surplus and wasn't issuing any bonds. So it was actually interesting. It was a time when I was in a market which was pretty much in decline. There wasn't much trading activity. So I was contemplating potentially, I'd been doing it for sort of 10 years and I had always wanted to be self-employed. And a good friend and a person who worked in the industry for many years had previously started up Mortgage Force, a mortgage broking company where I started. And she enticed me to come on board, which actually was at the time it felt like a massive move and a big change, but it was a really, really exciting time.
And do you remember what your first 6 to 12 months in the business was like?
Oh yeah, it was hard work, and you never have no idea. Well, back in those days, like 2003, it was early days of mortgage broking, and there wasn't really much adoption of mortgage broking itself, and people really didn't know what you did. So I think back then it was we did like 5 to 10% of lending, I think, compared to sort of close to 60% now. So it was very much a case of trying to tell people what we did. I was pretty convinced it was a good model because I'd used a mortgage broker just a year or so before. So I really sort of looked at the whole process and realised that it's a really good service and a really good model. So that's how I got into it.
Good. And how did you go about finding clients back then, to get you started?
It's interesting. I actually remember I wrote down, I typed up a spreadsheet of who I thought would be good potential clients or leads. And I remember looking at it, 5 or so years later. And funnily enough, most of those people that I thought would be good clients never eventuated. And of course, the clients that become good clients and good referrers and what have you are people it's just come from a completely random source. So it was hard to predict where it came from. I mean, it was really started with friends and family and work colleagues, and expanded from there.
Yeah, definitely. So you growing your business organically, you were telling me, through service, and you get a lot of your net business nowadays from your existing customers and referrals from those customers.
Yeah, exactly. I think like a lot of brokers, especially the long unit, obviously you do get that existing client base generation. And I've actually never really been big on sort of asking clients for referrals, and I don't really do much marketing, and I'm pretty hopeless and all that sort of stuff, to be honest. I just sort of knuckle down and get into it and communicate as effectively as possible with my client base, and I think that certainly helps in sort of them, passing on the word.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And you were telling me earlier it comes down to, your service and making it easier. So tell me a little bit about, some of your process and some of the things that you do that other brokers would benefit from in terms of, how you run your business and what you actually do.
Yeah. I've always been of the view that our business, mortgage broking's a business of information transfer. And, we've on the one end, we've got someone needing the money. On the other end, we've got, institutions that have got the money to get it out. So we're just, as we all know, we're in this situation of getting the information as efficiently as possible processed and, to the lender to get the solution for the client. The joy about that, and it keeps getting better and better, is that the technology is a brilliant thing for exactly our business. So it's interesting. COVID's actually, I think, probably been one of the best things for our business
Oh,
because
definitely.
it has meant that, institutions, lenders have had to bring fast track forward their processes to make that process more efficient. I mean, it's still a bit bizarre that we're still sitting here in 2020, and we've still got banks that are taking the longest that I have ever seen in 18 years or 17 years of being a mortgage broker. It's actually a bit of a world record. I actually shot an email off to Shane Elliott at ANZ last week in disgust, and to his credit, he got back to me, and they really do take the cake at the moment, tracking at about 10 weeks from submission to picking up an application, which is just considering that banks like Macquarie can do it in 2 hours or 4 hours. Another bank can do it in 10 weeks. It's a bizarre situation we're sitting in at the moment. And but getting back to the technology, it's such technology. It really is a beautiful thing, and embracing it is something that I've always loved, and it's amazing how it can really improve your processes and really, I suppose, improve your sanity and, more importantly, the outcome hopefully for clients.
So give me an example of how you use it. So a lead comes in, and then what would you do?
Yeah, probably the simplest and easiest tip and trick, which a lot of people might use, but one thing that I've really embraced for many years is basically using what I call auto text expanders in your email. There are a few different programs that allow it. Like there's one called Gorgeous, which is or Georges or something. I actually simply use a Google Chrome extension called Auto Text Expander, and it basically means that you can think and type in shorthand. So I did a calculation. I did a presentation to one of our conferences a few years ago, and I did a calculation. I just looked at the number of emails I sent on an average day, apply that, work out how many basically words that I'm saving by using shortcuts, and apply it over a year. And I worked out that I save 5 work weeks a year of typing by doing it. So I've got like 81 or something shortcuts, which are all different things, which we all, when the client asks us questions, we've got answers for those questions, and rather than reinventing the wheel, you just basically save that answer and have a 2-letter or 3-letter shortcut, and as you're typing, it just auto-fills that information, and then you can update it as interest rates change and what have you. But that's probably, as a starting point, probably one of the greatest, time-saving, tools that I've got. I suppose from the perspective also of just in terms of when talking to clients initially, trying to garner as much information as possible. And what I do very much initially is basically run a servicing calculator and equity calculator straight away while I'm effectively on the phone with the client. So you sort of frame up exactly how the position of the client is. So then how the deal's looking, and if it's if it's not looking like a deal, we'll then be very upfront and straight away go, look, it's not going to happen here. This is or this is what needs to be done before you're going to be in a position where you can achieve this. So, and then from that initial conversation, very quickly, basically by using a lot of those shortcuts, auto text and what have you, they're very much then getting back to the client quickly with effectively a path to what the solution is, which obviously includes the documents required, using then a lot of things like I'm sure a lot of brokers use. One of the great developments is data scraping, bank account scraping tools like Ilion bank statements, which is a wonderful tool to get a lot of the client's financial information very, very quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then there's a number of those different types of things, and from a living expenses point of view, that obviously helps you out immensely as well. And so you use that for living expenses as well?
Well, the living expense conversation is obviously one which is, it takes on all sorts of, angles, and the bankstatement.com information is a great way to frame up someone's financial life, but it's also, you can use that as a bit of an overlay for the clients to say, well, here's a bit of a snapshot of what, your last 6 months has been like. The reality is, yes, banks will look at what your last 6 months have been like, but also the reality is, if you're a first home buyer and you're buying a house, yes, as the High Court judge the other day, people stop eating the Wagyu and the Shiraz. So not that they're Wagyus, they're Angus, but that's I simplify it down a bit and have that discussion over the phone, and then also on email, look about these, the categories we need and your likely living expenses.
Yeah, definitely. And so obviously, so that's from the point, and then following application into post-settlement, are you using any other sort of technology post that?
I suppose through the process of when I'm say the initial discussion with the client, and then sort of analysing lenders and situations, what have you. Probably some of with the simple tips about, I suppose, storing and recalling information with regards to, because obviously, we're taking a hell of a lot of information about client situation, and oftentimes obviously have that initial discussion, and they mightn't, get back in touch for a week or a month or whatever. And I suppose the really simple thing is about managing that information, and probably one of the simplest tips, like I've always just simply, when it comes down to, client notes, the old A4 piece of paper, but get everything about in that conversation on one piece of A4 paper. And the moment that and it's, after many years, you invariably write the same thing in the same spot and frame it all on that one piece of paper. And the moment I hang up from that discussion with the client, I scan that straight to my Gmail and save that as the client's label, or in the client's label. And so it means that when that client rings back, whether it's a month or a week or 3 months later, save their phone number in your phone. G'day, Bill, how you going? And then in the moment you quickly go to Gmail and go to that label for that client, and bang, there's that one piece of paper electronically, and it all comes back into your mind very quickly because you've written it, as compared to in a CRM. Because you've written it, you actually recognise. It's amazing. The client, you might have spoken to them for 3 months, but within probably 20 seconds of looking at your own handwritten piece of paper, you will recall a lot about that client. Actually, probably a really simple, basic tip, but it's actually probably one of the best sort of time savers to recall information about a client's situation. But in terms of, I suppose, then from the processing point of view, with regards to resources that I use. We've got an offshore.
So on that piece of paper, you said you write the same things in the same spot. So have you got like a template or a structure that you use, or it's just the way,
Well,
because you've been doing it for 17 years, it's just the way it works?
And you use the same acronyms and what have you. And it's funny, for a while I actually printed off, I actually pre-printed some pieces of paper and thought I'll give myself a bit more actual structure. Then I realised that didn't work, because depending on the person's scenario, a simple blank piece of paper is better, and it actually doesn't need anything written on it. You just have a pile of blank paper at your ready, and you'll find after a while you just get into the routine of writing the same things in the same spot, so your recall is really good. And the support stuff, I send that to our team in Manila, who then put that into our system and what have you.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you use that you think other brokers may find useful sort of throughout the process?
Yeah, well, actually, one which is just a little technology tool, which probably a lot of people use on iPhones or Androids, is a turbo scan, or a scanning app, because it's amazing how much, because nowadays with clients sending you, you get text messages or emails, and it might be photos, and it might be JPEGs, it might be all sorts of stuff. It's actually a simple $5 app on your phone called Turbo Scan or ScanFast, or I use that to scan those notes to myself. And like I say, if someone texts me a photo of their payslip, or everything, people send you information for all sorts of ways, shapes and means, but of course at the end of the day, it all needs to be basically converted to PDF. And that's a really quick and easy way to, they might send you a photo of obviously a form they've signed or whatever, but you've got to convert it back to PDF. So simply, a $5 Turbo Scan app is probably one of the best word or document processing tools there is about.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's great.
But I suppose, like I said, I've talked about, bankstatements.com, which is fantastic. I mean, everyone uses nowadays, cloud storage with Google Drive and the like, and all of that is obviously, very, very helpful, especially with, getting support, which is remote in terms of processing, which I use a lot of.
Yeah, definitely. So you touched on that remote processing. So I want to go a little bit deeper into your remote processing. So just tell me about your current team at the moment.
So Smartline have got a team in the Philippines, and I've got 2 dedicated resources that I use there. It's effectively one guy does the morning, and another lady does the afternoon. That's a bit of that just helps with regards, if someone's away, there's a bit of a backup plan there. And they're really for data processing, data input into the system, file management, naming of files in Google Drive, contacting banks for doing annual reviews, doing pricing, doing valuation requests. They don't do any client-facing work for me. I've got an onshore person here in Mudgee who looks after that, and myself. And then I've also got a lady who works for me in France overnight. So she works her daytime, which is night time. She's actually previously was a broker here in Australia, so she now contracts to me. And so when I've got loans ready to go to be processed, which obviously nowadays involves a hell of a lot of compliance and documentation and preparation. So she basically does that overnight as an overnight processing for me. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah,
and so is she employed on a per deal basis or a salary? How do you pay her?
I pay her on an hourly basis as a contractor. So
okay.
she just keeps a timesheet, and I just pay her in euros as a contractor. So
and how are you finding having the majority of your team offshore? What are the pros and what are the challenges that come with that?
Yeah, well, To be honest, the great thing about, well, I suppose in France, like I know her, I've known her for many years. She used to be a broker here in Australia, and so she knows she knows the whole process inside out, and she's great, and I trust her dearly, and that's like fantastic, because the fact that it is overnight, like it's quite good at. It forces me by the end of the day. I sort of go, oh, I've got to get, because I've got to give her the information to make sure that, which doesn't take too long. I use similar shortcuts I was talking before, and it's a template of exactly, I just type in 3 letters and it'll create a template of all of the information that, I need to give to her so that she prepares the loan exactly how we want it prepared. She's got access to my Google Drive and emails and what have you. She's actually within the Smartline confines, what have you. But it works really well. I mean, same with the Philippines. I mean, there is, offshoring there is a bit more challenging. Takes a while to find good people, to be honest, we've found. And so it takes a bit of training, but when you find someone good and if you train them well, then they're great.
Yeah. So, I mean, COVID has really opened the doors for staff and, people, no longer do they have to think about just having someone, sitting in their office. They can, look a little bit further abroad. And you're a perfect example with 3 of your key staff being sitting offshoring. So around training, how do you go about, conducting the training sessions, say for your Philippine staff? What processes have you put in place to do that?
Well, that's the other great thing about, COVID and the tools like we're using now, and, the ability to share screens on a video call. It's so much easier now to, all of this can be just done so much better. And to be honest, it's so much more effective, because it just means that you can do it instantly, much more, like I say, it's more effective. You can have a share screens and discuss and everything. So it's easy, so easy. Like the reality is, compared to what used to exist and the way you used to try and process everything, it used to be a lot harder. The ability to use these tools nowadays to our benefit is much greater. I just wish that all the banks would embrace all of those same technological benefits to the same extent.
Yeah, I mean, I know myself, I've been using Loom, which is a great video app, and one of my clients, I introduced that to him over the last couple of weeks, and he's now been using it and, presenting scenarios and training his Philippine staff. So there's a lot of good technologies around that you can just share a video link and have a whole process and talk someone through everything that you're doing on your screen.
Exactly.
So it's like they're just sitting in front of you.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So what else? If you were giving some advice to a new broker that was coming on board and wanted to sort of get to where you've got to in terms of being a top 100 broker in the country, being one of your aggregators' top performing franchises, well, what are some of the key tips or attributes they should work on?
Yeah. Definitely the first one is persistence. And I reckon there's if you have an expectation that it's all going to be beer and skittles, it's definitely far from that. And it really is a case of, you just got to keep showing up, and eventually, it will. There's no substitute for hard work. It does take a lot of hard work, to be honest, in this industry. And it's easy to get knocked down, whether it's clients and whether it's banks, and you get declined, and it is still, after many years, there's moments when you go, oh my God, this is just so hard, and then other moments you go, oh, this is fantastic. So persistence is probably the number one tip I would give to anyone, and never expect it to be, especially in the first year or even first couple of years, don't get down if you just find it hard going, because that's basically that is what happens. The number two is really about early on. The good thing is you got a lot of time, but you sort of sit there and feel like you're twiddling your thumbs. But use that time. It's a pretty valuable resource to have early on in the piece, because the great thing about having that time is if you spend it on just each day, just improving your processes a little bit, the benefits are just forever. So, I look back and think now, God, I wish I started using some of these shortcuts and tips and tricks 5 years earlier or 10 years earlier and what have you, rather than typing out lengthy emails every time, time and again. And so, and the joy is you can, if you think, I wonder if I can, I wonder if there's a tool or a tip or a trick to do this or that better. Well, there probably is, and all you have to do is type it into Google and you'll find it. And that's sort of how, I suppose, I started with, like when I first got an iPhone, someone showed me how to do text replacement, which I now use all the time, which is really just a setting in an iPhone. I think you can do the same in Android, where basically you just save. It's the same concept I was talking about before with Auto Text Expander in Gmail. And all it is, so for example, at milestones in a client's process, so let's say unconditional approval or settlement or pre-approval, what have you, open a text message and type in 2 letters and it'll populate, a very, very quick text message to that client, which it literally just go, I don't know if I can show on. No,
I think your cows are in the way, mate.
Yeah, get those. But but again, you can just Google. It's called text replacement in an iPhone, and you can, type a really comfortable, like really nice, warm text message. You also, as part of the process, they get an email and what have you on settlement, but or unconditional. But it might be, unconditional might be at 8 o'clock at night or on a weekend or whatever, and you can shoot that quick text message, and it's just a very easy, efficient way. So I suppose, just explore ways to do things better, because and probably another thing which is coming more to light now, and especially post COVID, is electronic signing. It's just, I now use DocuSign to send all of our compliance documents to clients. We generate a statement of mortgage advice, and we have obviously everyone has a broker interview guide, and being able to get clients to electronically sign these documents now. And the good thing is lenders like NAB, ANZ, ING, a number of others that will accept application documents that are DocuSigned, which is really helpful, because it means that you can get, applicants to have signed all of the required documents within a couple of minutes via DocuSign, rather than, the whole hassle of printing out documents and signing them or what have you. So that's a really good one to embrace.
Oh, definitely. And, in terms of, I think all of those tips are great, and, just making it easier with the technology. Sometimes technology makes it harder, but, there's so many great things. And as you said, it's about connection. It's about doing things quickly and efficiently. And even one way in this environment where we're not seeing as many people face to face, that a lot of clients are using is video. Just sitting there pressing record on your phone and sending a video message. It's really personal, really easy to do, and takes you, less time than to probably type out a detailed text message, right? So it's that high tech, but if we're using a lot of high tech, how do we make it high touch? So exactly. It's other clients of mine were saying, because they're doing a lot of these interviews, like we're on Zoom now, but you don't have the 10, 15 minutes of just banter, you tend to get more into business. So you need just different ways to sort of, remain and stay with that contact. But look, this has been great, Simo. It's provide a lot of value and a lot of practical tips, which is what brokers want, right? They want to be able to take things and implement them into their business straight away. So I think you've given a lot of gold that you've developed over the last 17 years. So yeah, really thanks for your time.
No, it's good, and I do love sharing it too, because at the end of the day, we're all doing similar things. But I've always had I've shared an office in Balmain with numerous brokers who are good mates, and it's always better to be collaborative rather than competitive, I find, because you have so many more benefits.
Yeah, I was reading a book today exactly like that, right? When people get stressed and fearful, they tend to try to be independent and take it on and try to do it all themselves. But we're not like that. We're interdependent, right? So you've got to reach out. You've got to, learn from whoever you can, and help to take your business to the next level, because it's definitely a team sport. No matter if you're a one-man band, or it's definitely a team sport.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I often learn as much from new entrants who come in with new ideas, and it's great. I love learning from new guys in the industry, or girls, because it's good new information. So no, that's great. I appreciate the time, Ross.
Definitely. Well, this has been another episode of the $1 Billion Broker. Make sure you subscribe on whatever podcast channel that is, whether it's Apple, whether it's Spotify or SoundCloud. Make sure you subscribe. We have a Facebook group, the $1 Billion Broker Facebook group. So request to join that. We're building a big community so everyone can learn and grow together. Thanks again.